What's up, guys? Welcome to this episode, guys, of Aussie English. This is episode, I think, number 4 now of Effortless Phrasal Verbs. Today we're going to be going through the particle back and all the different phrasal verbs that can be formed using that particle. As usual, guys, I'm going to be focusing on the particle because I'm a lot more interested in teaching you the cognitive linguistic side of this stuff. So what's going on in my head and how you can just use the particle when you know the movement you're trying to describe, and then pull the verb out that you want to use to describe, I guess, the movement and how it's happening with the verb, and join them together. So if you haven't signed up already, guys, make sure you click the link in the description, give it a look, have a go. Yeah, definitely check it out. I'm going to be dripping it out 2 episodes per week as we go. It'll probably run for about 3 months, give or take. We'll see. It should be about 24 or more episodes. So I'm going to go through as many of these different particles as there are, and then I'll probably do some comparison episodes, and we'll see what else we can come up with to throw in there for good, I guess, good value as well. If you sign up now, you'll get it for a lot cheaper. It'll only be $97 as opposed to $110, which will be the price that I will bump it up to once it's finished and packaged together. So that's to encourage you guys to get on it and help me create this. I'm slowly working away at it, getting it done. It's taking a bit of time, but it's good fun. It's good fun. Anyway, aside from that, guys, give me a thumbs up if you can hear me okay, or a love heart, up to you guys. And I'm just going to give it a quick share on Facey Face on Facebook, just so that it gets boosted up a bit. And in the meantime, where are you guys watching from today? What are you guys up to, and where are you watching from? And I see it's the usual suspects. It's Rocio, Lale, Mart as well. What are you guys up to? How have you been? Just got to refresh this and give it a quick share. Man, I have some good news as well. I have some good news for you guys. I quit my job at the restaurant this week, so it's Aussie English 100% of the time now, nothing else. So I'm just working away like a madman on this stuff, but no more restaurant for me. How good is that? How good is that, guys? I know it's pretty good, Mart. No more jobs. I feel a little homeless, a little jobless. Anyway, giving that a quick share. All right, if you guys can hear me, give me a thumbs up. And then we'll just get into it. We'll get started, guys. So today we're just going to be talking about the particle back, B-A-C-K, back, and how it pairs with all these different kinds of verbs to effectively mean the same thing. And it's this movement of, these two things are together, and if one of them moves back, it's going backwards away from that thing. That's going to be the basic concept with the particle back. So we'll go through some of the different meanings. The first one is that movement, the most basic meaning of back. This is forwards and this is backwards. If something moves, towards you and then it moves back, it's moving backwards like this. It's moving back to me. So the first one's going to be basic movement, and then we'll get into the more abstract versions of how to use this particle back with other verbs. Number 2 will be when something returns. So it goes forwards. Imagine it's going forwards and then it comes back. It's returning, and this can be literally, it can be figuratively, like a replying. A reply is where you've said something or you've sent something out, and then you get something in return, so it's coming back to you. So that'll be number 2, return or reply. Number 3 is going to be for something to cost you, to delay you, or to hinder you. So the idea of holding you back, preventing you from going forwards, holding you back. And again, there'll be literal and figurative versions of to cost someone something, to delay someone, and to hinder someone. Number 4 is going to be the basic idea of reducing something. So imagine if something grows out and then it can shrink back to the size that it was originally. So it grows out, it grows bigger, and then it shrinks back in size. So to return, I guess, is the idea there with reduction in size. Again, there'll be literal and figurative versions of this. We'll go through some miscellaneous ones in number 5, guys, that will be loosely related to some of these different definitions that we've just gone through. And then we'll go through some expressions. So without any further ado, let's just get into it, guys. So position and movement. You can imagine that if I was standing like this and I start moving back, you know, I'm facing forwards and I start moving back, that my body starts doing this, right? And so I can use whatever verb I want to describe that action. Maybe I go back, I come back, I walk back, I step back, I run back. It can be anything. I jog back, I drive back. So we'll go through some of these examples. To go back, it's time to go back to work. So this could be literally that you need to go back to work. So you were at work, you've left. You know, imagine you've got work here, work's my head on the screen here, and you've gone out from work, out to have lunch, then you've had to come back to work, or you've had to go back to work. So again, that's the idea of returning. To step back, can everyone please step back? This might be the policeman holding people back from a crime scene. Can you guys step back for a sec? Can you step back? So that's the idea of you're standing here facing this way and he's wanting you to step back. Step backwards, we need you to step back. Maybe he might say stand back. So that's the idea of stand behind, you know, move back and then stand behind, say, the yellow line or the police tape. He might say stand back, you're in the way, you need to make space, you need to move back, you need to stand back. I always hear this at the station anytime I'm waiting for a train to come. When a train comes, there's a yellow line that I'm not meant to walk past. I'm not meant to walk across or over. And so often there'll be an announcement that will say you need to stand back behind the yellow line as the train comes in. We've gone over move back. I've mentioned that a few times there. The policeman or someone could say move back out of the way. So move back and then out of, as in, I guess, removing yourself from being in the way. Move back and out of the way. And someone might just say get back, as in whatever way you want to do that. Move back, run back, walk back, jump back, but just get back. You need to move yourself back. It's dangerous here. There's a snake on the ground. Get back. Okay, so that's some basic position and movement stuff. There's a few more here that I've got. You could put something back. Again, that's to return something though, which we'll get into soon, but you could put back your watch, as in you can move the hour hand back or the minute hand back. You're doing, you know, it's here, it's forwards, and you're moving it back. We had daylight savings come in, I think maybe yesterday, and so we all had to put our watches, I think we put them back an hour so that we have more sunlight. So we put our watches back 1 hour. We put our watches back an hour. You could draw back. So draw back would be to pull back something. Imagine you are a lieutenant or a colonel in the army and you've got all your troops, your soldiers that have gone forward. They're pushing forward against the enemy. If you want to draw them back, that's the idea of getting them together, drawing them. So that's the idea of this, you know, moving them backwards. And drawing them backwards would be bringing them back away from where they've been pushed forwards to. So the general drew back his forces. You might also hear people say lean back, lie back, lay back, sit back, and kick back. These are all effectively the same thing. It's just a different way again of describing this action of you standing up and they're wanting you to lean back. You know, if I was sitting in a chair like this, if I do this, I'm leaning back. If I stand up out of the chair, someone might ask me to sit back in the chair. There's another use of back. But say you go to the dentist and you're sitting upright like this. You're sitting up in the chair. He might tell you to sit back. He might tell you to lay back. He might tell you to lie back. And if he really wants you to relax and make yourself at home, he might say kick back. Kick back, which is the idea of putting your feet up. Kick back and relax. So the example sentence I have here is he leant back in the dentist's chair. He leant back, this movement. in the dentist's chair. The last one here for position and movement that I have before we start moving on to some other stuff, guys, is imagine that you want to eat some fruit. Imagine a banana. So you've got a banana that has skin on it and you want to take the skin off the banana. You want to peel the skin off. If you peel it from the top here down like that, so imagine that the front of the banana is facing you, you're peeling the skin back because you're peeling it backwards away from you or back to where the rest of it is. So she peeled back the banana's skin, or she peeled the banana's skin back. So that's the basic idea there with movement, guys. If I'm standing here and I'm facing forwards and I move back, it's to go in this direction with whatever verb you want. That sort of direction. All right. So number 2. To return. So this is linked with the first one that we went through, guys. It's still movement, but if something goes forward like this and then comes back to me, it's returning to me. Okay, so there's, again, anytime you want to describe that movement of something coming forward and then coming back, you use back, the particle back, and you pick whatever verb you guys feel like using. So go back. I want you to go back to school. You left school too early, you have to go back to school, you have to return to school. Maybe instead of saying go back to school, I say walk back to school. So we walked back to school. Maybe we had to get there in a hurry, so we had to hurry up and we ran back to school. So she ran back to school, I ran back to school, I returned to school by running. Maybe you could use to jump, for example. We jumped back over the fence into the school. So we left the school by climbing over the fence, and then we jumped back over the fence. We returned over the fence into the school to get back into the school. Or you could jump back in your car and drive home. If you had driven somewhere, exited your car, to get back in your car and then drive home is to return inside of your car and then go home. We jumped back in our car and went home. If someone hits the ball to you and it goes out of bounds or something and you pick it up, if you hit it then and the ball goes back to the person, you've hit the ball back to the other person that you're playing with, to your opponent. You've hit it back, the ball's returned to the other person. And you could kick a ball back. If someone's kicked the ball to you, you could kick the ball back to someone. So back again, it's just to return. So to go forwards and then come back. A few more here with take, the verb to take. This one has quite a few different meanings, but they're all basically related to take back something. So if I give you something and I take it back, it's that I have retrieved it from you. So I've decided that actually I wanted the thing that I was going to give you. So here's this, you've taken it. And then I say, actually, I want that thing and I've taken it back. So the thing's returned to me and it's happened by me taking it. It's returned to me and I did it by taking. So you could take something back like an insult, or you could take back a compliment. Anything that you say, if I say something to someone, it's like I'm giving them my words. The words are going to them. They hear it, especially if it's a compliment or an insult. And if I retract it, if I withdraw it, I'm taking it back. So I might say a really nasty thing to my girlfriend, and then I might say, actually, I'm sorry, I take that back. Meaning that I'm retracting what I said, I'm withdrawing that. Or maybe I said to my dad, you look really good with your face shaved. He has a beard, he shaved the beard off. And then I say, you look really good. And then I actually see him in a better light and I might be like, actually, I take that back. You look horrible. So that's the basic idea there. Figurative, talking about words, compliments, insults. I wish I could take it back. You could take something back somewhere. So you could return an item somewhere. Imagine that you have bought something and it was broken or damaged and you've had to take it back to the store. You've had to return it to the store and ask for a refund or ask for it to be replaced. I want to get this changed over. Can you please go find another one that isn't broken, that doesn't need to be repaired, and give me that instead? So imagine she took back the dress to the store, or she took the dress back to the store after she noticed it was ruined. So that's to take something back somewhere. That's the more literal sense of returning something. And then we could have to take someone, like myself. I took myself back to a time. So, for instance, if I was watching a movie and I said, this movie really takes me back, it's that it reminds me of something, especially something that's happened obviously in the past. So it really reminds me of something that happened to me. So I might watch a movie about a place that I went on holiday 10 years ago, and I watch a film about this same location, and I could say, oh wow, the film really takes me back to France when I was there last year. This movie takes me back to when I was there on a trip. Okay, so the basic idea there is to return you. Figuratively or literally, it's that basic action of something going out into the world and then coming back to you or to something. Also, we can talk about replying to something. So I guess this is more figurative, returning, replying to something. The first one here though is something to grow back. So at the moment my hair is growing back. This isn't replying, this is the fact that it's returning. So it's coming back, it's growing back, it's pushing out of my skin, back out of my skin, it's coming back, it's growing back. My hair is growing back. So if I've cut it down, I guess this is related to reduction as well. I've cut the hair down and then the hair grows back. Okay? So reduction, actually that's expansion. So it's coming back to what it was. We could call, we could ring, or we can phone someone back. So that would be the idea that they've tried to call us, they've tried to ring us, they've tried to phone us, but we didn't answer. We've picked up our phones, we've looked on our phones, we've pressed in our number, and we've seen, oh, they've tried to call us. I better return the call. I'll call them back. I'll ring them back. I'll phone them back. So this time they've called us, and then we've returned the call by calling them back, ringing them back, phoning them back. So I'll call you back after work. If you don't want to call them, you might text them back. So you might text them on the phone. You've got your phone here and you're writing a message, you're writing a text message to send back to them, you're texting them back, you're messaging them back. If you're on your computer and you're doing it via email, you're emailing them back. So it's a reply. The reply is the thing that requires the particle back because it's going back to the person, and then the way in which that's occurring is how you decide which verb you want to use. Are you calling them? Are you texting them? Are you messaging them? Are you emailing them back? So that's the basic idea there. If more broadly you just want to say to someone that you want to reply to that person, and that you might do that in the future, you can say, I'll get back to you. I'll get back to you. That's sort of like, I'll get back my reply to you. So you'll receive it, but in the future. So for instance, her boss got back to her. That would be like, she tried to ring her boss didn't answer, but he got back to her. He called her back, he texted her back, he messaged her back, he emailed her back, and he got back to her. He replied. And we also have here, you can report back to someone. If you report back to someone, it's that you answer that person, or that you are, say, a soldier in the army and you have to report back to a commanding officer, your commander. That means that you have to go and do your job, and then you have to go back to him and tell him about how that went. So you've had to make a report, but you've done it to him, and because you've gone back to him, you're reporting back to him. You're going out into the world, collecting information, returning to him, and going back to him, and then reporting back to him. What else have we got here? All right. Number 3. So to cost you something, or to delay you, or to hinder you, okay? You could set something back or set someone back. And this is often used with regards to being a cost, how much something cost you. So if I bought a Ferrari, my parents might be like, wow, that looks like it cost a pretty penny. How much did that set you back? So they're asking, how much did that cost you? And it's set you back figuratively because it's hindered you with your income, with how much money you've got. So imagine you're trying to save up. So imagine the idea there, up versus back. You're saving up all your money, and then you've spent a heap of it on a Ferrari, and so it sets your savings back. It's reduced your savings back. So how much did it set you back? $500,000 is how much it set me back. If you hold someone back or hold something back, it can be the idea of literally holding a person at arm's length and holding them back, so keeping them away from you or from something else. So for instance, if a bouncer was standing at the doors and not letting someone into the nightclub, he's holding them back. You could do it more figuratively, like someone is holding back what they think. It's like, I have an opinion of something, I'm keeping it in my head and I don't want to say it. So I'm holding it back. I'm not letting it out, I'm holding it back. A soldier could be fighting an enemy, so he's shooting them, and he's fighting so well that they can't come forward, so he's holding them back. Okay? The soldier's holding the army back, or the enemy back, and he's holding back what he really thinks with regards to his opinion. He's not saying it, he's holding it back. He's retaining it. You might also be forced to stay back somewhere. So if you have to stay somewhere after you were meant to leave or you were meant to do something else, you've had to stay back. So you've maintained your, location in that place and you haven't been able to leave, you've had to stay back there. So the student stayed back after class. Imagine the teacher gave him detention so he couldn't leave. He had to stay back. He was held back in class, literally or figuratively. So to stay back is to remain in that location. All right, number 4, and this is reduction. Okay, this is the idea of reducing back down. So I guess the idea would be that it was here first, it's gone big, it's gotten big, and then it's come back. So this we could talk about with plants. So imagine you've got a plant that's growing up out of the ground. So it's growing up out of the ground, pushing up out of the ground, moving incredibly slowly up out of the soil, out of the ground towards the sun, to the sun. So imagine this plant dies or is dying. It's in the process of dying. We could say that it's dying back. So if the plant reduces in size, it's dying back. We could cut the plant back. So the plant's grown up or it's grown out, and we want to reduce the size back down to a certain size. If we do this by cutting, scissors or hedge clippers or something, it's going back in size. We're cutting it back. We're trimming it back. We're chopping it back. Again, back is referring to this reduction in size. You just pick the verb that describes how that reduction is occurring. Okay? And this can also happen with hair. If I was growing my hair out, I was growing it long and it had come all the way out to, say a meter long. The hair's grown out of my head down to my bottom. If I got it cut back or trimmed back or chopped back, the hair is reducing in length. So it's that idea of it reducing, reduction. The hairdresser cut my hair back. The plants died back in the summer heat. So let's go through some miscellaneous ones, guys, and then we'll go through some expressions, and you can ask me any questions at the end of the lesson. All right, so if you go back on a promise or you go back on something, this is the idea of breaking a promise. So breaking what you've said you were going to do. You didn't follow through with what you promised. So he went back on his promise. He'd promised something. So again, I guess it's tied in with returning. He said he would do this, and then he's taken it back by going back on his promise. He went back on his promise. He didn't do what he was going to say or what he was going to do. You can talk back to someone, you can answer back to someone, you can argue back to someone, and this is the idea of talking, arguing, or answering in a cheekily way. So this would be like if someone is telling you off, your parent, a teacher, someone's telling you off, they're saying you've done something wrong, that wasn't okay. if you respond to them in a cheeky way, you're kind of being rude, that is to talk back to someone, to answer back to someone, or to argue back to someone. So don't answer back to your mother. Don't talk back to your mother. Don't argue back to your parents. You can think back to a time, or you can think back on a topic, and this would be the idea of recalling events from the past, so remembering something. You're thinking back to when you were overseas. He thought back to when he was overseas, or you were thinking back on that time that you were in France, or thinking back on the topic of the meeting that you had today at work. To think back, to recall something. You can kind of do this the same way, but we look back at something or look back on something, and this is to reminisce or to recall a moment in the past. So the old man got to the age of 90 and he looked back on his entire life. So you imagine his life started here and was going this way, and he's facing this way going forward in time. If he turns around and then suddenly looks back at his history, he's looking back at when he was young, he's looking back at his past, or he's looking back on the times when he was young. So the sentence that I've got here is, she looked back on her life with pride. She was very proud of her life when she looked back. The last one here, I know we've got a few more. The second or third last slide rather. To get back at someone. If you get back at someone, this is to get revenge on someone. So I guess it's kind of returning the nastiness. If someone says something to you, insults you, or maybe, could do something like a violent crime on your family, if you get back at them, it means to get revenge on them. So she got back at her boyfriend for breaking up with her. This could be maybe she keyed his car, she smashed one of his windows, maybe she sent him some nasty messages. Whatever she's done is revenge. So she got back at her boyfriend for breaking up with her. You can double back and retrace your steps. If you double back, it's the idea of you've walked forwards and then you've come backwards. I'm not sure why we say to double back. I guess it's just to cover the ground twice. So you've gone forwards once and then you've come back a second time. So you've gone across the ground or the distance 2 times, double. So you double back. We need to double back. We need to retrace our steps. You can bounce back or come back, and this is the idea of recovering. So recovering from sickness, although you can do this in a game as well, a footy match, for example. But with regards to being ill, if you recover, if you bounce back or come back, it could be that you're a patient who has started to bounce back after you had cancer, meaning that you're recovering again. In terms of a footy match, if one team's losing though, so a lot of points are being scored and they're losing, the other team's losing, if they start to bounce back or start to come back, it means that they're scoring points again and catching up to the other team. And they might overtake the other team. They might get past them with their score. They're bouncing back, they're coming back. You can claw back something with regards to, say, money. So resources, I guess. We often use this for companies who want to save money or get money back. If they claw back money, claws are the nails that animals have. If you claw back something like profits, it's the idea of you're really fighting to keep this thing or to return this thing to yourself. So the company clawed back some profits. You can also cut back on something, and this just means to reduce, although we can use it for, say, costs. And in a business, we could use it for staff in a business if we want to reduce the number. We can also use it for cutting back on a bad habit. So imagine you're smoking a lot of cigarettes. If you cut back on them, you reduce the number that you're smoking. So I'm cutting back on the number of cigarettes that I smoke. The business could cut back on costs in an effort to claw back profits. And it's just that basic idea of reducing or returning, okay? Number 6, okay, so I wanted to go through where we turn the particle back into a verb. So sometimes we actually turn things like the word back in this example into a verb of its own. So it can be just used by itself, okay? To back, to back. So you can back out of something, like an arrangement. That's the figurative idea. I've agreed to do this, and then, oh, I've changed my mind, I'm backing out. I'm leaving, I'm getting out of it. I'm backing out of the arrangement. You could do it literally. If you're driving your car back up a driveway, you're backing the car up the driveway, or you're backing the car out of the driveway. It just means that it's going backwards. So the businessman backed out of the deal, or the car backed out of the driveway. You can back someone up on something, and this is to support or defend someone. So she backed up her husband on the decision. You can back down, which means to stop defending or to surrender, to give in. So I never back down. I never back down. You can back off, meaning that you, I guess, you're coming forward and then you back off. It's sort of you reduce the amount of pressure that you're putting on someone. So imagine a guy is really forward with a girl. He's really forward with her, and she says to him, can you just back off? Back off. She asks him politely to back off. You can back away. So imagine I'm walking through the forest, I see a snake on the ground, I might back away. So that's literally to move my body backwards, but we've turned the particle back into a verb. He backed away from the snake slowly. The last ones here before we get into the expressions are to back into, onto, off of, down or up. And this is the basic idea of reversing a car. So if you reverse a car, you're not going forwards, you're going backwards. You're backing the car, and you'll tend to back it into a driveway, onto a driveway, off a driveway, down a driveway, up a driveway. You just pick the particle that you want to use to describe how this displacement is occurring in space and time, and then you just use the verb back in front of it. So to go through some expressions before we finish up, guys, let's just go through them. To be back in the game. This is a really good one. If you're back in the game, to be back in the game is to resume something after an absence. It can be literal, where, say, a team has been playing poorly, so they've been absent in the game with regards to their performance. And if they're back in the game, it means that they're playing well again. So they've resumed how they normally play really well. They're back in the game. But you can use this with regards to things in life. Imagine that I stopped drinking because I'm a pregnant woman. I didn't want to hurt my child. I didn't want there to be any negative effects during the pregnancy. But then after the pregnancy, I get back in the game and start drinking again. So I was absent from drinking, from the drinking community, from that activity, and then I've resumed it by getting back in the game. You can be back in business. And again, it can be literal, where a business starts running again, but it's usually used figuratively to be ready and able to function or begin an activity, a pursuit or a task after a period of dysfunction or disability or disrepair. So if you're back in business, imagine that your business burns down. So there's been a fire and your business burns down. The fire burnt up everything that you had in the business and it literally collapsed. If you build the house up again, once you open up again, once you open the store, once you open your business, you could say, we're back in business. We're back in business. So that's the literal idea of literally having a business that is back in business. You could be a footy player who injured his leg and you have been out of the game, literally, for a little while, but then you're back in business or back in the game once your leg's healed and you can do that thing again. Okay? That's the basic idea there, to be back in business. You will always hear the expression, be right back. I'll be right back, or just be right back. And this just means to return shortly. And it gets reduced to BRB in emails, in text messages, online. BRB is be right back. I'll return shortly. Be right back. To go to hell and back, or to have been to hell and back, is to go to a really horrible place, literally or figuratively. So maybe you have had some family members pass away, you've lost your job, your dog's died, you've literally been to hell and back, or figuratively been to hell and back, because you haven't actually been to hell. That's one that's quite often used. That's really good, to have gone to hell and back, to have been to hell and back. to blink, to choke, or to hold back tears. This is the idea of trying to maintain tears in our eyes inside of our head and not let them out. So someone could be at a funeral after their father's passed away. If they're blinking, doing this movement with their eyes, they're trying to hold back the tears. They could be choking them back, where they're like with the throat. They're choking back tears. They could just literally be holding the tears back, really trying hard not to cry, and that's just to hold on to these things and not let them out. So I guess to hinder tears. Blink back tears, choke back tears, hold back tears. If you get back on the horse or get back on the cart, this is the idea of returning to something that you were trying to do but gave up on. So maybe you were, I don't know, really good at football, broke your leg, and then you were out of business, you were out of the game, and you think, I'm going to quit. I'm going to give up on this. I can't do it anymore. I'm injured. I'm useless. But if someone might tell you, get back on the horse. Get back on the horse that bucked you. Give it another go. Jump back in the game. Get back in the game. Get back in business. Get back on the horse. Got a few more here and then we'll get into question time, guys. So you can go back to a square one. To go back to square one is to start again. So imagine that I lost Aussie English, the website. If I went back to square one, that would be to create the website all over again, to completely redo it, to start again, to start over, to go back to square one, to have to restart something. I can knock back a drink. If I have a drink like this and I drink all of it, I knock the drink back. So knock is this movement of just hitting something. It's slang, but we would use this all the time. Let's go to the pub, grab a few beers and knock them back. Knock them back. Drink them, okay? And I'll knock back a drink right now. You might hear people say back at you or right back at you. And this is usually when you've said a compliment or you've said an insult and they're trying to send it back to you. So if you said to someone, you look beautiful today, you look absolutely incredible, and they agree with you but sort of inverted, where they think you look beautiful, you look wonderful today, they might just say back at you or right back at you or straight back at you. So right or straight meaning without any sort of deviation. Back at you, guys, back at you. Sit back and relax. This was that sort of idea again. Remember leaning back in a chair like this, leaning back. You might lie back if you go completely horizontal. If you kick back, you put your feet up. So you literally kick your feet out and you lean back, you're kicking back. But if you sit back and relax, this is quite often used in English to just mean make yourself at home or be at ease. Calm down, just be calm, be happy, sit back and relax. So again, you might hear this at the doctor's office, at the dentist. When they're trying to get you to be calm, they might just say, just sit back and relax. I know what I'm doing. We're all good. The last one here is to bring something back to life. So to return something to life, to return something to the state of living, to bring back to life. Again, if someone died in front of me, they passed away in front of me and I've done CPR on them, so the heart compressions, and then I've given them mouth to mouth so that they can breathe. If they come back to life, or I bring them back to life, they return to life. So they're alive again. They died, they passed away, and they've come back to life. I brought them. I was the one who did CPR, so I've brought them back to life. Going back to the business that we were talking about that burnt down and then reopened, it opened up again. If I breathed a little bit of new life into it, I bring it back to life. This would be the idea of maybe completely redoing it and making it look amazing again. So it used to look good, and then it burnt down, everything in it burnt up, and then I returned it to figuratively being alive, being nice, being lively, being beautiful. I've brought it back to life. So you might hear this too with things that are run down. So imagine you bought a car secondhand off someone that, you know, was selling it on a website, selling it on Gumtree, which is an Australian website for secondhand sales. It's really run down, it looks awful, and so you've brought it back to life by repairing it. You've fixed it up, you've repainted it, you've put new paint on it, you've brought it back to life. Okay, you've breathed new life into it, brought it back to life. So that's it for today's episode, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Keep practicing all of these episodes. Go over it a few times, but get the basic idea here of what the particle means, in this case, back, which is the basic movement of facing forwards here and moving away from the direction you're facing, that backwards movement. We talked about a whole bunch of these different things where it can be that basic movement, it can be returning, it can be replying to someone, it can be something that costs, delays, or hinders you, and it can be the reduction, the idea of returning to a certain state or reducing in size, and then we had a bunch of different miscellaneous ones. So keep at it, guys. Anyway, let's get into the question and answer time, guys. If you have questions, just chuck them down below. I think Rocio has one here already. Hey Pete, nice to watch your class. Is back off also used to ask someone to leave you alone, to not push you around about something? Yeah, exactly. So this can be used literally, as in back away from me, get away from me, back off. So imagine that there was a woman who was really intensely into me and was like coming on to me. I could just say to her, back off, as in back away from me, get off me. So off as in separate yourself from me, back away, back off. But you could use this, I guess, yeah, I'd probably use it mostly for that, as in keep away from me, back off. But you could use it figuratively, where if someone was just intensely texting you, they're not actually on you, literally standing in front of you. But if they were just being too intense, you could ask them to just back off a bit or back off slightly, and that is to kind of reduce the intensity in which they're sort of, coming towards you or doing something. So imagine someone's put some perfume on and it's been way too much perfume. So they've given themselves 10, puffs of the perfume bottle. Someone might say to me, if that was me, they might say, dude, you need to back off on the perfume. So back off on something in that case is to kind of reduce the thing that you've done too much of, perfume in this example. You need to back off on the amount of perfume you're using because it's just too intense. And if someone was driving really fast, you might ask them to back off on the accelerator pedal. So they've pushed the accelerator pedal down and you want them to come back up. You want them to reduce it. So you might say, I need you to back off on the pedal. Back off on the speed, reduce it. Okay? So any other questions here, guys, regarding English, regarding phrasal verbs, anything else that you guys want to know about before we finish up for the evening? I'm all ears. I'm all here to help you guys with anything that you need. I guess before we finish, guys, oh no, here we go. Just wondering where olive trees are found. Are they found in Australia? I don't know, Ruchi. That's a really good question. I don't know if olive trees, I assume that we can grow them here. I'll do a quick Google search for you, but I think, yeah, there's companies here in Australia apparently. Oliveaustralia.com is apparently a website, so I assume that they have a farm that grows olives. I assume they're found here. We use a lot of it in cooking, olive oil, and we eat a lot of them, but I think they originally come from the Mediterranean, right? They're a key part of the Mediterranean diet and the Mediterranean salads that you get. So, and the Greeks used them, I mean, the Romans used them, so I think that's where they originally came from, but they've been since exported everywhere in the world. So if there's no other questions, guys, I might just finish up by telling you that I really recommend signing up to this course. If you sign up now, you'll save a bit of money. It's only $97 to sign up and get into it. It's going to be all about phrasal verbs. The basic idea behind this course is that I want to teach you to create phrasal verbs when you speak spontaneously without thinking. I don't want you to memorize lists of them. You might have to memorize a few, especially the abstract or irregular ones, but all of the ones that I create when I speak, at least the majority of the time, I pick the particle, I pick the verb I want to use, and I push them together and create the phrasal verb. So that's what this course is designed to do. I'm going to be taking you through each of the particles and teaching you the cognitive linguistic side of it, where you understand how I'm thinking as a native speaker, and I'm going to try and teach you to do exactly the same thing so that when you learn these phrasal verbs or how to use these particles, you will just be able to do it spontaneously, effortlessly, like a native. So if you haven't already, make sure you check out the course, sign up. It'll be getting dripped out week by week, a few episodes a week. I know you're going to love it, so give it a go, and I'll see you on Thursday at 7 p.m, guys. Keep at it and keep working hard. Peace out.